Leia Healthcare. It's good to live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health podcast with Karl Henry.
Folks, welcome to the latest episode of the Real Health podcast in association with Leia Healthcare with me, Karl Henry. Every now and again, we bring you a surprise guest. We've had Adam Clayton, Leah Varadkar, Claire Burns, Simon Harris, Micheál Mura-Hurtig, and the goal is to learn from these people. We don't expect them, they're not necessarily experts in their field, but they have amazing insights into their health, into how they handle stress and their motivation. And today, I'm coming to you live from Herbert Park on a sunny Sunday morning in front of probably close to 400 people at the Gym Plus Coffee Make Life Richer Days. And I'm ecstatic, slightly apprehensive and slightly nervous to be joined up here by none other than Brian O'Driscoll. Brian, welcome to the Real Health podcast.
Thanks a lot. If you're nervous with me, what were you like with Adam Clayton?
Surprisingly relaxed because I kind of know him, so it's easier. I've met you before.
I really want to hear that podcast. I've met him a couple of times, and he is as fit as a butcher's dog. Oh my God! So I'd love to actually understand and hear some health tips and some exercise tips that he might have. So when was that?
That was May. That was May last year over in Boston. One of the gigs we flew over.
Okay, cool.
Did the interview over there. It was very cool. Listen, we're going to start with business. Talk to us all about Gym Plus Coffee and the Make Life Richer Days. This is the final one that's been done in the series. What's it all about?
It's about this. It's about people getting outside, getting outdoors. This is what is it? During the stretch series, there's been 9 events, 5 here in Herbert Park, 4 in Cork. I think it's just about encouraging people to get outside, get outdoors in particular, and exercise, and enjoy their exercise through socialising as well. I think the day and age that we live in, that we're stuck behind phones, we're stuck behind computers, and sometimes exercise and talking and socialising and enjoying coffee and hanging out with one another is a secondary thought. So it's just about encouraging that feel-good factor of what exercise does do for you. And Gym Plus Coffee has partnered up with some great fitness and health partners over the course of this series, and been able to put on great events like this where people have an opportunity to have a bit of fun and to work themselves a little bit and get themselves out of their comfort zone, as I hope people did today.
And of course, you came on board as the head of community for Gym Plus Coffee. Tell us a little bit about that. What's the role involved?
Well, I suppose community. I've been involved in teams, professional teams, for 15, nearly 20 years, and I understand the value of having teammates, of having people to share those great moments and you know what, sometimes share those disappointing moments. It's so much easier to exercise with company. I don't know about all of you, but I find it so difficult to go to the gym on my own and go and motivate myself, even though I might have a plan for what I want to do and what I want to achieve. It's such a difficult thing to do, to get into that state. Whereas if you get someone to go for a walk with you, or you plan to do something with someone, if you don't do it, you're going to let them down. So straight away, you're onto a winner, where it gets you outside, it gives you a purpose to get outdoors, and then you get, to have a little bit of fun, you have a conversation, and I think just the values of what Gym Plus Coffee are about, of getting the community together and getting to have some fun and have a good time, is what exercising for me is all about. I always played rugby with a smile on my face because I enjoyed it and I loved it. And now what I try and do with my exercises, likewise, is try and have a good time. And during your rest sets, you have a bit of a laugh, and then when you're working hard, you're working hard.
So anyone listening in, Brian makes it all sound as if it's been a very gentle morning here in Herbert Park. I've been here for the last hour watching the workout with yourself and Stefan Fusco. It was anything but easy. That was a hard session earlier on.
Yeah, it was tough. It was. Listen, I've worked with Stefan, as he started out as a personal trainer a few years ago, and then we just became training partners, where he needed someone to help him, to help push him and lift his weights for him as well, and make sure that he got more out of his sessions. So we talked during the week about what we were going to do, And I probably didn't anticipate it being as tough as it has been. My legs, like everybody else's here, are on fire. And I'm going to need this Platinum Pilates class to try and counter all that squat work that we've done to get a good stretch out and make sure that I'm not creaking tomorrow. So, yeah, there's no point in doing exercise if you don't push yourself a little bit. I'm not saying you have to be super strenuous, but you got to try and get yourself out of your comfort zone. That's how you get that extra little bit of fitness. That's how you see a difference in your body physique, irrespective of what shape or size you are. Just push the boundaries a small bit each time, and you'll see incremental improvements time and again.
One of the key things for you, obviously, in terms of exercise now is enjoying it and having fun. And that's very much what the Gym Plus Coffee community is all about. I've known the guys for a long time. That's one of their key things, if you like. In terms of rugby, you're saying there that you always play it with a smile on your face. I'm fascinated by what happens after rugby. And I want to take a little bit of a trip back there with you and see, after the last game, you decided to retire. It's what you trained for. It's what you did. The emotional, the mental, and the physical rollout from that. How do you feel in the days and weeks after you decided to retire?
I think the days and weeks aren't difficult. What I found was that the first year is really easy, where you get to do all the things that you weren't able to do for 15 years, have a good Christmas, enjoy the lead up to it, eat what you wanted. Christmas time, rugby players are the entertainment for everybody else, where you play like Stephen's Day and New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So to have all of that, to take up some great invitations that you would have had to forgo in the past. So once you do all of those for a rugby calendar year, or a rugby year, they're brilliant at all, and then you finish that and you go, oh, they were all really good, not as good as playing international rugby. So, the second year I found was actually the difficult one, and it's a little bit like, it is a little bit of a mourning period. Part of you wants, of course you want the team to go well, but you don't want the players that have replaced you to go extremely well. The ego in you is like, yes, the team to be brilliant, but number 13 to only be okay. And that just didn't happen in any shape or form. Jared Payne came in and was phenomenal. Gary Ringrose come in and absolutely smashing it. But there's a bit of ego in all professional athletes, and so it's difficult. But after a few years' time, I think you become a fan like everybody else. It's just you get over that time of you're not part of that team anymore. You have to move on with your life, and I think you have to find your happiness in other things. So it's taken a few years to get there, but I'm definitely in a more comfortable place now. Okay,
and I'm fascinated by, at the height of your career, how hard you were, considering just watching that workout earlier on, how hard you were training in terms of quantity of time, in terms of hours spent in the gym. What did a week of professional rugby training look like in terms of exercise?
Well, it really depended on the time of the year. Pre-season was obviously a really awful time for fitness sessions, for cardio in particular, for trying to put on muscle mass. So, you really earned your money kind of July and August in particular. I don't envy them. You see, particularly with social media now, you see the sessions that the boys are doing, and I have to say I'm happy to be a 40-year-old retired rugby player. There's no hiding anymore with assault bikes and watt bikes and everything being programmed back into a microchip or into a computer where all scores are fed back into the coach. There used to be a time, and everyone's been part of a spin class where the lead goes, okay, let's crank it up a little bit, and you give the old dummy turn a couple of times. You all know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So we've all done that, but there's none of that anymore. So you different times of the year, then you taper off when you've played an awful lot of games, and towards the end of a season, training would become less and less, and then the age profile of the individual depends as well. When I got to 32, 33, 34, I probably wouldn't train until Tuesday at the very earliest. I'd have 48 hours off, because you have the miles on the clock, and it's just a matter of rest being a more important aspect. So it's funny, we're with the different people came up there and we were talking about different exercises, and some people saying that the wheelbarrow press-ups, were impossible. That for me is my bread and butter. Because upper body strength would have been something that I suppose I would pride myself on and be able, and something that I do a huge amount of now. Whereas talk about the cardio stuff, and it was always part of my game that would have been the last thing to come. I really struggled with getting that level of fitness, and then very quickly you'd lose it if you got injured. Within a week or two, it would drop off dramatically. So. There's some guys that would make you absolutely sick that would go away on holidays and go drinking for 26 days and come back and absolutely annihilate everyone in a bleep test or in a yo-yo test or in any form of fitness testing. I wasn't one of them. I was someone that had to work so hard on their aerobic and anaerobic, particularly aerobic fitness. Give me a little bit of a break in there and I can survive. Continuous work, 3Ks, 5Ks, 10Ks were not for me, and that's where the bleep test was an absolute nightmare. So it's funny that horses for courses, and you know your own body extremely well, and you learn to adjust to circumstances and different levels of fitness necessitated for your position.
That was my next question I was going to ask you. Was your favourite and least favourite style of training? And you've already answered it. In terms of bleep tests, out of interest, scores?
I can't even remember. I've blocked it out of my memory. It's like I don't want to undercut myself. It's like 18. Is that shocking?
18 is pretty. It's super high.
It's super high. Okay,
good.
17 and a half. Then I couldn't have been 18 then.
Okay, after rugby then. So the body, most professional rugby players, and not just rugby, but sports, Gaelic, any professional sports players, post-sport, when they retire, they generally gain weight. You have probably done the opposite in some respects in terms of your shape and your body shape. Talk us through that in terms of how that's changed from when you were playing to now.
Yeah, listen, there's definitely a fat person in here, and I have to be really aware of that. And for the first 2 years of my retirement, it's funny, there's a double whammy with retiring rugby players, and you see so many putting on weight because what you do is you're dealing with the disappointment of leaving something that you've loved. And very few players decide, I've had enough of international rugby. Do you know what? I want to go and work in a bank, or I want to go and do something else. Because with respect to bank workers out there, international rugby is really exceptional, and you wouldn't give it up, lightly. So you have to give it up because someone's decided that you're not good enough anymore, or your body has told you can't do it anymore. So with that in mind, you're losing the disappointment of doing something that you love, but then there's a double whammy of most players stop training to the same degree that they did. Very few keep on working 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, working out 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. So it's a double negative, and it can impact you, psychologically, but obviously physically as well. And for a couple of years, I did a couple of Pilates sessions. Platinum was a part of my life for the last 3 or 4 years of my career. I'd say I definitely got another year at least out of my career on the back of Milna and Will and what they did and what versatility they brought to my makeup and my being a little bit more supple. And then, so I was doing that, a couple of times a week, but I had myself fooled where I was still the same weight, but I just had a really, really bad redistribution of it. It was, so I was 94, 95 kgs, but it was hanging on all the wrong places. And then I realized if I don't catch this, that I'm going to not be beautiful to look at on TV. No one wants to see an overweight pundit. And so I just decided I got to make this part of my routine. And so it's, when you start again, I remember my first session with Stefan, he asked me to do 15 chin-ups, and I literally laughed at him. I was like, 15 chin-ups? I don't think I'm going to be able to do 4. And I was right. And then slowly get into it, and then all of a sudden, the competitive juices start flowing again, and you start chasing scores, and trying to lift heavy again, and all, just things where you get little wins, and that competitive instinct I don't think ever leaves you. So now I try and train 4, maybe 5 times a week. And again, it's largely, it really only happens when I train with somebody else, with Stefan or maybe find a training partner. If I have to train on my own, tends not to happen. So that's why it's so important to fit something into your schedule where you let somebody else down, because it's easy to let yourself down. It's more difficult to let somebody else down.
Folks, you're listening to the latest episode of the Real Health Podcast in association with Leia Healthcare with me, Karl Henry. We are live from Herbert Park on a very sunny Sunday morning for the Gym Plus Coffee Make Life Richer days. Brian, talk to me about the mental aspect of retirement, and I suppose for our listeners and for people in the crowd as well. The mental component of health is crucial. Going from being in the Aviva or being at these huge stadiums in the world, playing these amazing games, to not playing at all. Presumably mentally, that's quite difficult to deal with. And how did you find it? And what tips would you give people to improve their own mental wellness and their own mental strength?
Yeah, it is difficult. And I think there's a little bit of that mourning period of the disappointment of leaving something that you left. As I said before, I was never really one for mindfulness or getting into yoga or anything like that until I retired. And then, you have your low days and your disappointments. So I started giving it a little bit of a try and appreciating the lows a little bit more, not appreciating, but understanding the lows a little bit more. I started, listening to the Calm app a little bit more and trying to just disconnect myself from those negative feelings and those negative thoughts. It's not an easy thing to do. Everyone has negativity existing in them, be it through work or relationships or family or sick parents or whatever. There's so much in the world these days that you can potentially be negative about. It's about trying to switch off from that, and that's what I've tried to do. I am a believer that if positive thoughts do reinforce more positive thoughts. So to try and get control of your headspace a little bit can do wonders for kind of a positive mental outlook.
Okay. I'm going to ask you one of those questions that I'm sure you hate being asked, but I'm fascinated, so I'm going to ask it anyway. High point of your career, or high points of your career when you were playing. Is there any one particular one that sticks out, or a couple that stick out as the ultimate moments, or your favourite moments, and what are they?
I think you judge yourself on the success and winning trophies in particular. It's not an individual accolade thing. It's about the success you've had with teams. And I guess if I pick two, it would be that finally getting to win the Grand Slam in 2009 after so many near misses. I think we finished second in the Six Nations 5 or 6 times throughout the noughties, and we just felt as though we were always going to be the bridesmaid, and eventually we managed to win one, and the relief that came with that. But I would say a very close second was also winning the Heineken Cup, as it was then, for Leinster, having even more so been perennial underachievers in that regard, and then to know that in the same year we'd have a Grand Slam and a Heineken Cup. But what kicks in very quickly then is, I was 30 years of age when that happened, and I realised time was running out. But then all of a sudden you kind of think, right, how many can we get? How many can we chase? And we got another Six Nations title 4 years later, my final year, but we managed to win 2 more Heineken Cups. We were beaten in a semi-final in between that as well. So the attitude and the mentality of the team completely changed with that success. And sometimes it's about breaking the seal. The first one is the most difficult, and thereafter, it just comes a little bit more because you relax a little bit, or you feel as though, you're capable of getting there. You've achieved it once. Why can't you do it time and time again? I think you can see that mentality in the Irish team these days, and in the Leinster team, that they feel that they'll be competing for honours every single year, be it domestically with the Pro 14 or in Europe, and. I think that feeds down through into academy systems, into schools players wanting to come through and play for Leinster and Ireland. So it feeds the machine. So I guess those 2 moments really stand out.
Was focus and drive an aspect of your personality that was always there from when you were little up through the school system? Because even listening to you there, once you won one, you're like, okay, what's next? Where's the next thing? What next can we? As opposed to some people will be very happy winning one trophy. Were you always driven and focused?
Yeah, I think so. I think I wanted to win. I I think as well, when you realize that you have a bit of a talent for something as well, I think the important thing is not to put a ceiling on it, and to realize that there's no limitations to where you can go. I remember coming into the Irish setup, and it was of a time where we weren't at our best in the throughout the 90s. Ireland were sort of in the doldrums, particularly in Six Nations rugby. Didn't win very many games. So coming into that environment, I guess it was a bit easier to prosper because I don't think we had the same level of players as we do these days. I remember coming in and thinking I got to be the best trainer every single day. And it's funny when you listen to other people that have had some success and hear teammates talking about it. It's the small wins. It's not just winning games and performing at the weekend. It's about little wins in the gym, little wins in fitness sessions. But also for me, particularly as a leader, I found I needed to be first at everything, and that included being the first to turn up at a drill. So when the coaches say, "Okay, have a quick drink of water, we'll be over there in 30 seconds." On 28 seconds, I was there because I knew as a leader, if I'd be there, everybody else would be close behind. If I walked over, everyone else would walk over. So it's about just those small little wins all adding up to a little bit more success. So I think there was always a competitive instinct. I have it in what I do now, in lifting weights and in my golf. I ultimately let myself down playing golf the whole time, but I feel in my head that I'm capable of great things, even though that will never be achieved. But I think it's probably a mindset that will never leave you.
Low points or hardest points of your career then. So I've asked you about the high points. What were the toughest parts?
I think injuries are a big part of it. And when big ones, when you miss important games, or it's a no-win situation when you're injured, because when when the team is going well, they're not missing you, and when they're going badly, you feel as though you could give them a dig out and help them out. So it's a really tough one, watching from the sidelines, and then the question marks as to whether you're going to be able to return back to the same degree. I had 2 serious injuries in my career. I dislocated my shoulder, and then I had a neck fusion, and both times, I have to say, I wasn't sure, when you come back. And I remember coming back from my shoulder injury, for the first 3 games, I got into a tuck position tackling with my right shoulder, because that's where my arm had been in a sling for 3 months, and that's where I felt comfortable. Not great picture for the referee, trying to tackle people with your arm tucked like that. And then one of my teammates said to me, listen, he saw it, and he said, I've dislocated my shoulder before. And he said, in 3rd or 4th game, I'm telling you just throw your arm out there and you smash someone, and you'll hear a clunk, and it won't be dislocated, and you'll be okay. I was like, that's pretty reassuring. Thanks a million. So sure, exactly as it happened, I just said, right, throw it out there and try and hit someone as hard as you can. And I did. And it's nice when you hit someone and they stay down, you're standing over them and your shoulder's not dislocated, and you go, okay, I'm back.
Okay, the future. What does it hold for Brian O'Driscoll? What are the plans?
I don't know. I'm not someone that has a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I try and live in the moment an awful lot, and just enjoy the here and now. Listen, I've got a young family, and enjoying them growing up and seeing the small little things, the small little differences that as they shape their personalities. I've got a very busy wife and a successful wife, so trying to fit into that family dynamic as well. And then, with the likes of Gym Plus Coffee, to be involved in something that I truly believed, I hope, matches my values as well, their values. Initially, why did they come to my attention? Because I love their gear. I won't lie to you, they sent me some of it out, and I thought, this is deadly. I really think it's a great quality, and I said I'd love to meet the lads and see what they're like. So I met Dermot and Niall, and I could see that they were smart guys, they were ambitious, and they were doing something that was going to benefit other people, as well as have nice kit, actually do something for community and for society. So I said I'd love to be a part of that, and I think it probably a few years ago, I mightn't have been able to see this, but I think now I can look at it more clearly that the world that we live in. It's funny, you know, you can be friends with people on Facebook and walk by them in the street and not say hello. And that's a weird world that we now live in, whereas this is about interaction, about socializing, about having fun, about, you know, feel-good factor. And it's all the things that I've enjoyed in exercise and I've enjoyed in my career. And I think it, you know, in the second part of my life, I don't want to give that up. So I want to be part of something that, you know, will hopefully you can see people taking away today and having had a good time and be able to go, do you know what, that was worthwhile 3 or 4 hours that I spent.
I suppose just to summarise what we've been chatting about, it's very much surround yourself with positivity, surround yourself with a community of health to empower yourself to get healthier and to stay healthy. That's very much one of the cornerstones.
And listen, I was asked by someone about, you know, having a bad week eating, and I said, you know, I don't train, you know, to try and have a body beautiful or any of that. I train for balance and for feeling good. And so I can have a glass of red wine and that I can have a meal or two every week that I want to have.
What does that meal look like? Everyone's dying to know that. They always are.
What's
a treat meal?
It was like 6 meals in New York last week, but that, I have to write those weekends off. I won't lie, I came back on Tuesday and I weighed myself and I was a couple of kilos over. And when I say a couple, 3 and change. But that's, do you know what, that's okay too, because I had a great weekend, had a great time, and now this week I switched into working hard. And every morning now instead of having some home fries over in New York, I'm having a kale milkshake with, you know, some berries and just trying to make this week a better week than last week. I don't think you can expect people, you know, most people want a balance in their lives, and I don't think you can expect people to be so down on their diet the whole time. I just can't do that. I like to be able to treat myself, but make more good decisions than bad decisions. And I think that's the really important thing. If you do have a bad day, or if you do feel as though you deserve a treat, that's okay too. Go and have that, but just don't make that a regular occurrence. And that's the way I look and live my life now. And when it comes to beach time, yes, you try and work out 3 weeks before that or 4 weeks before that, all the more when you know you're going to have your top off. But that's life too, isn't it? So
it's all about balance. So is that treat pizza? Is it, I don't know, Indian takeaway?
Chocolate. I like chocolate. But I like pizza as well.
I saw a few pizzas on your Instagram account when I was looking through it last night.
Yeah. I don't specify with cheat meals. I pretty much eat everything. And I like it, you know what, I like having a few beers. Even, do you know what I started doing during the week? I come home and have a beer when I'm cooking dinner, but I started drinking non-alcoholic just so I didn't get in the habit of having a drink every single day. But I'd still have a thirst-quenching 1 beer, might be 2. But then, you know, treat myself at the weekend and have a bottle of wine with dinner or 2 bottles of wine with dinner, depending on the company you have or depending on the meal you're having. So, you know, Sundays, I love getting, you know, we haven't quite started doing it yet. We moved house recently where I have one of those green eggs, the Kamado Joe, where I like doing those slow cooked meals, you know, for a day. So getting it fired up at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and then having friends over at 2 or 3 o'clock and just entertaining for the afternoon and trying to get them out of your house at like 6 or 7. And then you've had a good day, you've had an opportunity to hang out and talk, and without being interrupted in a bar or, you know, somewhere in town where you can actually spend time with friends. So that's one of my favorite days of the week. So I need to get that Kamado Joe back over from my folks' house.
Fantastic. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the Real Health Podcast. Thank you so much to Gym Plus Coffee for hosting us today, as well as part of the Herbert Park event. Folks, the latest episode of the Real Health Podcast is available on all podcast platforms. If you have any questions for us or guest suggestions in the future, you can email us at realhealth@independent.ie or at Karl Henry PT on Instagram and on Twitter. Brian O'Driscoll, thank you so much, and we shall see you soon.
Thanks.
Gurmil Mahagath.
Leia Healthcare. It's Good to Live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health Podcast with Karl Henry.